Defunct German car brands, Part 6, NSU. The origins of NSU date back to 1873, when German entrepreneurs Christian Schmidt and Heinrich Stoll founded a company for making knitting machines. A small factory was established in the town of Riedlingen at the river Danube. In 1880, the company moved to Neckarsulm because the building of a former sawmill provided the appropriate space for the growing business. In 1886, production of bicycles commenced. The manufacture of knitting machines was abandoned in 1892. From 1901 on, motorcycles were made. The development of cars started in 1906 with the three-wheeled Sallmobil. Before World War I, Neckarsulmer Fahrzeugwerke, short NSU as the business was now called, was the most successful German exporter of motorcycles. During World War I, the company manufactured motorcycles and light trucks for the German army. After the First World War, there was a boom in car sales, so a new car factory was built in the nearby city of Heilbronn. In 1926, a Berlin coach builder, which had a factory in Heilbronn, was acquired. However, that enterprise caused persistent economic troubles, so the Berlin factory was closed and the Heilbronn factory was sold to Fiat. In 1932, NSU stopped making cars and focused on its more successful motorcycle business. During World War II, NSU produced the Kettenkrad Type HK101, a small and narrow half-tracked vehicle with a front wheel and handlebar of a motorcycle and an engine delivered by Opel. World War II left the factories partially destroyed and the company almost bankrupt. An insolvency could be avoided with great difficulty. Motorcycle production was restarted in 1946 with pre-war models. In 1949, the first post-war motorcycle construction started sales. By the mid-1950s, NSU was the largest motorcycle manufacturer worldwide. A specialty of NSU was an unconventional method to drive the camshaft named Ultramax. It consisted of two push rods connecting a shaft rotating with half the speed of the crankshaft with a camshaft, which were driven by two pairs of cams offset by 45 degrees. This solution was chosen because bevel gears were too expensive to manufacture, a gear train was too heavy, a chain drive was too unreliable, and a belt drive was not yet available. During that time, NSU was very successful in motorcycle racing. The management foresaw that with increasing wealth, the population would switch from motorcycles to cars as their main means of individual transportation. And indeed, 1954 was the year with the highest number of motorcycles sold. In 1953, NSU started developing their first post-war car. The car was introduced to the public in 1957. Production commenced in March of 1958. Originally planned as a three-wheeler bubble car with a one-cylinder motorcycle engine, the production-ready car featured four wheels and an air-cooled two-cylinder four-stroke parallel twin engine derived from motorcycle constructions, developing 20 horsepower from 583 cubic centimeters of displacement, allowing for a top speed of 105 kilometers per hour. The engine was mounted transversely in the rear, driving the rear wheels. The car was named the Prinz. It was a frugal vehicle, but it had already a 12-volt electric system, where most other cars still featured a 6-volt system. From February 1959 on, the better-equipped Prinz II was offered, featuring amongst other improvement a fully synchromesh gearbox. The original version was renamed to Prinz I and continued to be sold. From April 1959, a tuned version of the engine, producing 30 horsepower from the same displacement, was offered, named Prinz 30 and running 118 kilometers per hour. Luxury versions, named Prinz IIe and Prinz TTE, with triangular venting windows and fully reclining seats, followed in September 1959. In September 1960, the Prinz III was introduced. The unchanged body now featured a high compression engine, putting out 23 horsepower, allowing for a top speed of 111 km per hour. The suspension was greatly improved. The Prinz TT received the same improvements but retained the 30 horsepower engine. 94,549 examples of the Prinz I, Prinz II, Prinz III and Prinz TT were built. A new body was modeled around the existing suspension and gearbox, and the capacity of the two-cylinder engine was slightly increased to 598 cubic centimeters. The Prinz IV was introduced to the public in September of 1961. It was publicly known that NSU was working on a revolutionary engine, the Wankel engine. Despite much speculation, this engine was not yet ready for production when the Prinz IV came out. The 116 km per hour fast car was available in 4 trims, named Prinz IV, Prinz VS and Prinz IV-L, the latter being available from September 1965 on. Another major improvement was the usage of disc brakes at the front axle as a standard from 1964 on. Production of the Prinz IV-L lasted until 1973, while the 2 simpler trims were pulled from the market in 1969. In 12 years of production, about 570,000 examples were built. Remarkably, the car remained extremely popular in Italy, where more than 72% of the production was sold. In Germany, sales dropped in 1969 after it transpired that the fuel tank mounted in the frunk burst in a crash at city speed, setting the car on fire within seconds. In 1958, a small 2-seater coupe designed by Italian design studio Bertoni was shown to the public, the NSU Sport Prinz. Initially, it was based on the technology of the Prinz II, but was later upgraded to the same improvements made for the Prinz III and Prinz IV. The parallel twin engine with 583, later 598 cubic centimeters was tuned to produce 30 instead of 20 horsepower, propelling the 565 kilogram light car to a top speed of 120 kilometers per hour. Production ran from 1959 to 1967. NSU launched a revolutionary car in 1964, the NSU Wankel Spider. According to the outer shape, the car looked like the convertible version of the Sport Prinz, but it was essentially a very different vehicle sharing almost no body part with its sibling. The most striking difference to any other production car at the time was the Wankel engine, with a chamber volume of 497.5 cubic centimeters, producing 50 horsepower. About 10 examples came with an uptuned version producing 65 horsepower. The engine had low torque at low revs, but it was so happy to rev and running so smoothly at high revs that drivers didn't notice they were driving it into dangerous terrain. Many engines were destroyed by over-revving. Driven correctly, the car accelerated from 0 to 100 km per hour in 14 seconds and ran a top speed of 155 km per hour. During its production run from 1964 to 1967, 2,375 examples were built. The first series-produced Wankel-powered car is today a highly priced vintage collectible. The expensive development costs for the Wankel engine left NSU with little resources to substantially upgrade its top seller, the Prinz. Based on the 2-cylinder engine, a 4-cylinder engine with just under 1 liter displacement was developed and mounted transversely in the rear. The overhead camshaft was driven by a duplex chain, and the cross-flow cylinder head promised potential for performance improvements. The body of the Prinz IV was slightly upgraded and restyled with oval headlamps and 6 distinctive separate bucket-shaped taillights. The reversing lights were mounted in the blinkers, shining down onto the chrome bumpers from which they were supposed to be reflected backwards. Independent suspension at the front and rear guaranteed sporty driving characteristics. The rear-mounted air-cooled 996 cubic centimeter engine produced 43 horsepower and accelerated the lightweight body to a top speed of 135 kilometers per hour. In 1967, the name Prinz was dropped and the car was offered as NSU 1000 or NSU 1000C, depending on the trim level. The engine now required low-octane fuel, its power output was reduced to 40 horsepower and the top speed decreased to 131 kilometers per hour. About 196,000 examples were produced. 1 year after the Prinz 1000, in 1965, a sports version was introduced named Prinz 1000 TT. It had bigger wheels, a high-compression 1085 cubic centimeter engine producing 55 horsepower and ran 148 kilometers per hour. Double headlamps distinguished the TT from the standard versions. In 1967, the engines received 2 carburetors, displacement was increased to 1177 cc, power to 65 horsepower and the top speed to 153 km per hour, and the name Prinz was dropped. Despite having an oil cooler, the engines tended to overheat. That's why many owners lifted the engine cover. Production ceased in 1972 with 63,619 examples produced. In 1967, the NSU Prinz TTS was introduced for racing and rallying purposes. The 996 cubic centimeter engine was up-tuned to 70 horsepower, mainly due to its 2 double carburetors. This concept of a strong engine and lightweight body anticipated the concept of the hot hatch of the 1980s. A top speed of 160 km per hour, an acceleration of 13 seconds from 0 to 100 km per hour, and superb driving characteristics competed with way more expensive and bigger sports cars by Porsche or Alfa Romeo. The engine could be easily upgraded to 85 horsepower and with mechanical fuel injection even up to 130 horsepower. In this shape, the rear-engine, rear-driven car was outright dangerous to drive. 2,402 cars were produced between 1967 and 1971. By the middle of the 1960s, NSU was desperately lacking a middle-class model, but was channeling its financial resources into the development of the Wankel engine and an upper middle-class model. This meant that a completely new middle-class model could not be developed from the scratch. Instead, NSU chose to increase the wheelbase of the existing Prinz 1000 to increase the luggage space in the front. Moving the wheel wells forward also increased the space in the passenger cabin, albeit by only a little bit. An engine with an increased capacity of 1085 cubic centimeters produced 53 horsepower. The exterior featured rectangular headlamps and a continuous lamp cluster at the rear end. The model named NSU Type 110 was produced from 1965 to 1967 in 74,000 examples. In 1967, the car received an engine enlarged to 1,177 cubic centimeters, producing 55 horsepower, and was renamed to NSU 1200. Until 1973, more than 256,000 examples were built. The engineers had put an emphasis on repair friendliness for all parts of the car. Changing the clutch required a mere 30 minutes. No car since has been so easy to service. In 1967, NSU shocked the automotive world with the Row 80. A brand new upper middle class model was presented, featuring an innovative, aerodynamically styled wedge-shaped body designed by Klaus Luthe, who would continue designing for Audi and BMW, and powered by a double-rotor Wankel engine, anticipating the car design language of the 1980s and 1990s. Erwin Praxel, head of development, also had put an emphasis on passive safety. The car featured a steering box that was moved upwards and backwards compared to contemporary cars. The steering column was short and collapsible. The steering wheel had a big impact absorber to protect the driver's ribcage. The fuel tank was mounted outside of the crumble zone in front of the rear axle, a highly stable passenger cell, and energy-absorbing crumble zones at the front. It was one of the first front-wheel drive cars with McPherson struts at the front and a semi-trailing axle at the rear. The dual-rotor Wankel engine, with a chamber volume of 995 cubic centimeters, produced 115 horsepower. It was unprecedented in terms of smoothness of operation and lack of vibration. Its turbine-like operation caused problems by drivers exceeding the maximum RPM, which caused the torque converter to expand, producing metal shreds, which in turn destroyed the engines. A last-minute change in the material pairing of the tip seals and the coating of the rotor housing led to high wear of the tip seals and engine damage. NSU responded with a generous warranty and goodwill policy, but could not prevent the Wankel engine from gaining a bad reputation, although the sealing problems were quite soon solved. In many cases, the mechanics were simply overwhelmed by these unusual engines and opted for sending the engine in instead of carrying out a simple repair. The car was unusually fast for its time. Acceleration from 0 to 100 km per hour was 14 seconds, despite a gearbox with only 3 speeds, and top speed was around 180 km per hour. Production ran from 1967 to 1977 with only 37,406 units built. The bad reputation of the Wankel engine and its high fuel consumption made the car almost unsaleable after the 1970s oil crisis. Although a Wankel engine was considered to be offered in certain Audi models, this idea was eventually dropped after the high fuel consumption could not be improved. The severe reliability problems of the Row 80 had deteriorated the financial situation of the relatively small car maker throughout 1967 and 1968, so the NSU AG was forced to fuse with another car maker. It was decided to merge with the Auto Union GmbH of Ingolstadt, which was owned by Volkswagen and successfully produced the Audi F103 and the brand new Audi 100. The merger in August 1969 resulted in the formation of the Audi NSU Auto Union AG, fully owned by Volkswagen. This gave Volkswagen access to the innovative developments of NSU. Innovation was bitterly necessary because the traditional Volkswagen concept with a rear-mounted air-cooled longitudinally flat 4-engine driving the rear wheels became outdated, and the brand new Type 4 model was harshly criticized by the press for its technological backwardness and didn't sell well. This way, the last car developed by NSU was never sold under the NSU brand. Instead, it became the first water-cooled front-engine front-drive model in the Volkswagen range. Initially, Volkswagen was not in favor of producing the new NSU development and ordered NSU to withdraw its presentation as the NSU K70 at the Geneva Motor Show in March 1969, since they had 2 brand new competing models in that range, the Volkswagen Type 4 and the Audi 100. However, after the bad press and sales problems of the Type 4, the Volkswagen management reconsidered their decision and readied the NSU development for production, albeit not under the NSU brand but under the Volkswagen brand and only as a sedan. In order not to endanger the sales of the Type 4 station wagon, which was selling reasonably, the production-ready K70 station wagon was dropped. Immediately after its launch in 1970, the K70 set new standards in the Volkswagen range. It was sold exclusively as a four-door sedan and offered a spacious interior that was superior to the longer Volkswagen 411. Additionally, a sizable trunk was offered, something that all Volkswagen models were lacking. The heating system was also superior to the one of the air-cooled Volkswagen models. The car was also distinctive in its shape. While many cars of the late 1960s and early 1970s had roundous, bulbous shapes, the body designed by Klaus Luthe, with intended relation to the smaller Prinz models, had a sleek appearance with straight lines and clear corners. The layout of the drivetrain was unusual. The engine was mounted longitudinally and at an angle above the gearbox and the front axle. The engine was derived from the tried and tested 1000 and 1200 cc variants offered in the rear-engine Prinz models. The clutch could be changed without removing gearbox or engine. The front axle was a modern construction using McPherson struts. The rear axle had semi-trailing arms. The suspension was quite soft, but the road holding was excellent. The front disc brakes were mounted inboard, reducing the unsprung masses and adding extra comfort. The long wheelbase warranted a comfortable drive. 3 engine options were offered. The two 1.6-liter engines had 75 and 90 horsepower respectively, enabling top speeds of 148 or 159 km per hour. The latter engine was replaced in 1973 with a 1.8-liter version producing 100 horsepower and making the car 162 km per hour fast. All engines featured hemispherical combustion chambers in the OHC cylinder head with V-shaped valves operated through rocker arms from the chain-driven camshaft. Tests revealed a high fuel consumption and rather low top speeds, both of which was attributed to the bad drag coefficient of the angular body. Several redesigns of the front didn't improve this problem. Additionally, the engines were criticized as being unusually loud. A version with a rotary engine planned by NSU as Row 70 was never developed. Coming from NSU, body, suspension and engines were of a more elaborate design than the usual Volkswagen components. Additionally, there were no equal parts between the K70 and any other Volkswagen model. The traditional Volkswagen buyers didn't value the car's features, and Volkswagen was hesitant to aggressively advertise the K70 in order to avoid competition to the existing 411, 412 and Audi 100 models, leading to low production numbers. All of this meant that production of the K70 was costly. In addition, Volkswagen was about to develop a more modern yet easier to produce transverse-engined drivetrain for the upcoming front-wheel-driven models of the 1970s and 1980s. This way, production of the K70 ceased in January 1975 after 208,005 produced examples. The low production numbers and rust problems mean that the car is now a very rare sight on the streets, and it is also not regarded very highly by the old-timer community, being a mid-sized, quite unspectacular little sedan.